The office lights buzzed overhead as Tasha sat quietly at her desk, triple-checking a logistics report while the rest of the team chatted near the break room. She always arrived first, left last, and made sure every number lined up. But somehow, she was still invisible. Or worse, underestimated. Her boss, Mr. Langford, was everything she wasn't. Loud, brash, white, and born into the position. He didn't notice how often she cleaned up after his mistakes, or how the clients only stayed calm because of her emails, not his half-hearted apologies. That morning, the team gathered for their quarterly meeting. Promotions were on the table. Tasha had been hoping, just hoping, that maybe her time had come. But instead, Langford leaned back in his leather chair and said something that would burn itself into her memory forever. Let's be honest. Some folks are better at taking direction than giving it. We need real leadership, not token experiments. The room froze. Everyone knew who he meant. No one said a word. Tasha kept her eyes on her notepad, even as her chest tightened and her palms went cold. After the meeting, she walked straight to the bathroom, locked the stall, and sat there, breathing. Not crying, not breaking, just processing. That night, instead of shutting down, she opened up a blank document and started something new. A proposal for a department-wide operations overhaul. If they wouldn't hand her leadership, she'd build a case so undeniable, they'd have no choice. Because the thing Langford never understood was this: you don't need a title to start leading. You just need the will, and Tasha had more than enough. Tasha arrived at the office earlier than usual, just as the sun broke over the skyline. The building was still quiet, the kind of silence that let her think clearly. She settled into her desk, eyes still stinging from a short night's sleep, but her focus was sharper than ever. Last night, after everything that was said in the meeting, she couldn't sleep. Instead, she worked. Not out of revenge, but out of purpose. Langford's words rang over and over in her head, like a low drumbeat. Some folks are better at taking direction than giving it. She knew exactly who some folks meant. But she didn't waste time being angry anymore. She used it. That morning, she printed out a 12-page proposal. A detailed systems audit that tracked where the team was losing time, money, and clients, and how to fix it. She laid it on her desk and stared at it for a moment. Her name wasn't on the front. She didn't need credit, not yet. She just needed results. As the office came alive, people trickled in with coffees and complaints, groaning about deadlines and blaming each other for slow metrics. Tasha kept her head down and started implementing small changes. She created a new internal spreadsheet that actually worked, color-coded it, and didn't announce it. She started replying to client emails faster than anyone else, using templates she wrote herself. Within 2 weeks, customer satisfaction was up 18%. She started quietly coaching the newer hires, not because she had to, but because no one else was. She taught them how to handle difficult calls, how to clean up messy data entries, how to anticipate what Langford would screw up next. She made everyone else look good, but she was still invisible to the ones who held power. Langford continued to bark orders, take credit for others' work, and make condescending comments in meetings that made her coworkers shift in their seats. When one new analyst asked her if she was just an admin, she smiled and said, "Today I am. Tomorrow, we'll see." Then came the moment she'd been waiting for. A major client, the one with the largest account, had a last-minute crisis. Their entire logistics order had been misrouted overseas due to Langford's oversight. He panicked, started yelling across the office, and demanded someone clean it up. Tasha stepped forward with a calm voice and said, "I already caught the error this morning. I fixed it. I sent a new invoice. They're staying on board." The room went silent. Langford blinked. "Wait. What?" She handed him the email chain, time-stamped. "Handled it. We're good." He mumbled something about good instincts and walked away pretending like it was his idea all along. But the team saw. Everyone saw. They didn't say it aloud yet, but something shifted. That night, one of the senior analysts, a white woman who had once politely avoided conversation, leaned over her cubicle and said, "You know, I'd follow you into a meeting room before I'd follow him." Tasha just nodded, closed her laptop, and packed up for the night. She knew this wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Power didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it grew quietly, day by day, until it filled the room. And Tasha was no longer waiting for permission. The promotion list was due in 3 weeks. Whispers about potential candidates floated through the office like perfume, subtle, lingering, hard to pin down. Tasha wasn't supposed to be in the conversation, and she knew it. Her name didn't come up in meetings. She wasn't invited to the fancy lunches. No one asked for her vision, but that didn't stop her from shaping one. She doubled down on her plan, not just fixing broken workflows, but building new ones. She redesigned the inventory tracking system from scratch and didn't just present it to her department. She sent it directly to the cross-functional teams, quietly, casually. And it worked. In 1 week, productivity in the warehouse division jumped by 26%. IT noticed. Finance noticed. People started emailing her with questions like, "Hey, how did you pull that off?" And, "Mind if I forward this to my team?" She never bragged. She never reminded them who she was. She let the results speak louder than her voice ever could. Meanwhile, Langford started slipping. His once polished confidence began to fray at the edges. He missed deadlines. He showed up late to meetings and blamed the team for poor communication. And every time something went wrong, it was Tasha who already had the solution waiting in a neatly organized folder. No applause, no stage, just a soft, undeniable presence that filled the gap he kept leaving behind. Then came the email that changed everything. The regional director, Ms. Parker, was flying in from headquarters. She was doing a tour of every division to assess long-term performance, and she wanted department leads to present operations reports in person. Langford panicked. He hated public speaking when it involved numbers. He didn't even understand half of what the data meant. And so, in a last-minute move of desperation disguised as delegation, he called Tasha into his office. "I need you to put together my report," he said, "and present it." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "You want me to present it for you?" "Well, you know the systems better than anyone. You've got the charts. I'll intro you, then you can walk her through the rest." She paused, then nodded slowly. "Sure, I'll present your report." He smiled, relieved. "Knew I could count on you." What he didn't know was that Tasha had already rewritten the presentation entirely. Not to sabotage him, but to tell the truth. Real data, real improvements, a real story of transformation. Not about him, about the work, about the people who actually showed up. The day of the visit, Tasha stood at the front of the room with a projector behind her, her hands steady, her tone measured. Ms. Parker watched every slide, asked questions, took notes, and at the end she said, "Impressive, very impressive. And you built most of these systems yourself?" Langford opened his mouth to interrupt, but Ms. Parker didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on Tasha. "Yes," Tasha said, "with support from a few sharp people here. But yes, I built the foundation." Ms. Parker closed her folder. "Good, because we've been looking for new leadership in the division. Let's talk more, in my office, alone." As the door closed behind them, Langford stood frozen, still holding his coffee, still thinking he was in control. But he wasn't. Not anymore. Tasha didn't just earn the spotlight that day. She took the room. Tasha sat across from Ms. Parker in a quiet executive suite overlooking the city skyline. The air felt different in this room. Calmer, sharper, more deliberate. Ms. Parker poured herself a glass of water, didn't rush, didn't blink. Then, she looked Tasha square in the eye. "You've been running that department from the shadows for how long?" Tasha didn't flinch. "Over a year. Maybe longer. And no one thought to recommend you for a leadership track?" Tasha smiled, but there was no joy in it. "No one thought I fit the part." Ms. Parker nodded slowly as if she'd heard those exact words 1,000 times before. She reached into a folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a performance chart. On it, all metrics rose sharply starting the month Tasha quietly implemented her own systems. "I've seen a lot of people talk about leadership," Ms. Parker said, "but you showed it. You built infrastructure without authority. You coached without recognition. You fixed problems before people even noticed they existed." She placed the chart between them. "We're moving Langford out. quietly. He'll get his severance and a soft transition. No drama. But that office will be open by next month. I want your name on the door." For a moment, Tasha couldn't speak. Years of grinding, of biting her tongue, of smiling through disrespect. It all suddenly condensed into this one breath. She took it slowly. "I'm ready," she said. Ms. Parker extended her hand. "Then let's make it official." Over the next few weeks, the change moved like a slow wave through the company. Langford was reassigned to a consultancy role. No one fought it. Most people didn't even ask questions. They'd seen enough to understand the truth. Tasha moved into his old office, a corner space with glass walls and a creaky chair she planned to replace on day one. Her first act? She removed the outdated department head nameplate from the door and left it blank. When someone asked why, she said, "Because leadership isn't about titles. It's about presence." By the end of that month, team morale had never been higher. New systems, new hires, better communication, fewer late nights, and, for the first time, people stayed after meetings to ask her for direction. One afternoon, a new intern stopped by her office, holding a file and looking nervous. "Sorry," he said. "I thought this was Mr. Langford's office." Tasha looked up from her desk, smiled softly, and said, "It was." Then she stood. "Now it's mine." The intern blinked. "Oh, I didn't know." "That's okay," she said, walking over to shake his hand. "You'll learn. Because the best lessons don't always come from the top. Sometimes they come from those who rise anyway, even when no one thinks they should." A month into her new role, Tasha stood by the window of her office, sipping tea instead of coffee. A small ritual she picked up to remind herself that she didn't have to do things like her predecessors. She could lead on her terms. The office was still adjusting. Most of her team embraced the shift, relieved to finally work under someone who understood the job from the ground up. But not everyone was on board. One person in particular, Mark, a mid-level analyst who had been close to Langford, kept his distance. He didn't challenge her directly, but his silence in meetings, his passive resistance to new protocols, and the way he avoided eye contact said everything. He wasn't just skeptical. He was waiting for her to fail. Then came the quarterly crisis. A miscommunication with a major client led to an overproduction error, thousands of dollars in lost materials, and a shipment that never made it to port. The blame was circulating fast, and Mark was quick to suggest that the new leadership structure might be spreading the team too thin. His tone was polite, but the implication cut sharp. She wasn't capable. Tasha didn't raise her voice. She didn't react in the moment. Instead, she gathered the team in the main conference room that afternoon. Everyone expected excuses. What they got was clarity. She brought in the shipping data, timestamps, email threads, everything. She laid out the exact chain of events, and when she was done, she looked at Mark directly. "This wasn't a leadership issue," she said. "It was a communication issue, one that started 3 levels down and snowballed because people assumed someone else was handling it." The room was silent. Mark glanced down at his notepad. "But I'm not here to point fingers," she continued. "I'm here to fix systems. We're installing a real-time tracking protocol starting next week. I'll train anyone who needs it. And no one takes the fall alone in this department. That includes me." There it was. Accountability, precision, grace. Not one person in that room could deny her presence after that. Later that evening, as she packed up her things, she heard a knock. Mark stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. I didn't realize how fast you could pull data like that." Tasha didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She just looked him in the eye. "That's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you time to prepare while others doubt." Mark nodded slowly. "If you're open to it, I'd like to help with the new system." She nodded once. "I'll send you the brief." He left and she exhaled. Not because she'd won, but because she had led. Without retaliation, without ego. Just focus, truth, and results. That night, she updated her office. She didn't bring in awards or personal posters, just one framed photo. Her grandmother in front of a typewriter, circa 1968. A reminder that every door she walked through had been cracked open by someone who refused to shrink. Tasha didn't wait to be chosen. She built the path. And now, Others were walking it behind her. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 6, where her leadership ripples beyond the company.